Well, ladies and gentlemen, that does it for the previous broadcast. Now we're entering uncharted territory, a place of proper terror. On this night and each night hence, at this hour, we offer transportation to a frightful place, most unexplored, most mysterious, and most horrifying. This, of course, is HorroRadio. Welcome back, dear listeners. It has been all too long since I have talked with you. Tonight, we have a special show for you. I suspect you'll want to hear this one, ladies and gentlemen, so sit back, relax, and enjoy this story, titled, Document Recovered from the Marianas Trench. I need to record this, because I forget things sometimes. I know myself, and I think what I heard today was important. Not to me. The time for me, or almost anyone else alive on Earth today, to make a difference has passed. But someone, somewhere, might be able to make something of this, or at least find it helpful or something. Once I'm done, I'm going to seal it up in a pipe, coat it in wax, and chuck it into the ravine. I'd love to start at the beginning, but I'm honestly not sure when the world started to end. Could have been years and years before the final bits, or it could have been all at once. Everything was so grim. What with warmer air, cooler seas, too little gas, and too many people, things could have been unraveling for ages before things bubbled up to the public eye. What I and others remember most was when the Disney magic sank. It was then, I think, that most people started to think that things might be worse than they seemed. I suppose I should tell you, the Disney Magic was a big cruise ship, one of those liner jobs that tools around islands and stuff, for rich folk. One day, the news was all screaming about how it suddenly just went down, and when it was trying to put it into port, it just vanished. The weird thing about it was there was no video of it for a long time. Some still pictures of it floating just fine, but none of it actually going down. Then, somehow, a tape showed up, and the news started playing it. I have to imagine they didn't review it first. Well, the ship was puffing along, strong and fast, little boats bobbing around it looking like every vacation lover's dream, when suddenly it stopped. I mean, stopped. Just a dead halt, like it had just slammed into a mountain. You could see people go lurching forward all over the deck, a bunch of junk fall off the sides, a real mess. It's all still for a few seconds, and then suddenly there's this foaming behind the ship. Most people assumed it was the engine trying to fire up again. Then the arm came up. I'm not actually sure if it was an arm, per se, but it was some kind of limb, and it must have been 100 feet long at least. It reached up alongside of the boat and just ripped it open. I mean, unzipped it like a coat. You could see all the people inside screaming and running. It was awful. Then you saw something lurch up, a big spiny shape pushing up against that gap, shoving in. There was an explosion on its back, and the camera whipped up to show a couple of jets whizzing by. Then it ended. I remember just sitting there, stunned, looking at the television, barely noticing the president coming on to declare a state of emergency. I think it was 2 or 3 days later when the TV went under full government control, but it may have been a week. I'm not sure. But soon, all you could hear, read, or see was, "Remain calm, everything is under control." The oddest thing was that life didn't really change much for a while. Bills still came, still had to work and go to school and all that. Just a lot more scared faces and a lot more weird talk. pretty soon we were getting told that whole towns were being evacuated, that there was a plague or a riot or a terrorist bomb or some other nightmare. My brother down south said that they moved because of a huge wildfire. The weird thing was, he said that the fire moved oddly, seemed to shoot right for gas or brush, and didn't travel evenly. That after a while he swore he saw what looked like a 20-foot tall man of fire, walking and eating everything. The call got dropped right after he said that. I haven't talked to him since. So, things got worse little by little. People kept being moved and there was no real way to communicate with each other anymore. It was really reliable, so it was hard to say just how bad things really were. Still, word of mouth was going strong, and it was frightening. Crazy things, really, like stuff about the dead rising in the north and killing frenzies in the east, and a place near the ocean where the ground was alive and eating people, a cult screaming about the second coming and killing people to buy off God. I started pulling more and more away from people, just to get some ignorant peace of mind. Looking back, that, well, probably saved my life. Finally, one day, I woke up and there was blood on my window. It was outside, and I could hear some insane things going on outside. I mean, screaming, clanking, gunshots, and the smell like burning wires. I hid. I'm not ashamed to admit it. I left my fellow man to rot, and hid inside for almost a full week, long after the noise stopped. After the 5th day, the electricity and gas gave out along with the running water. When I finally got hard up for supplies, I poked my nose out and saw that the whole west side of the world was gone. Now, I don't know for sure if it was actually gone, but there is a cliff that starts 30 feet to the west of my house, and I cannot see the bottom of it. I also can't see the other side of this ravine, so, for all intents and purposes, that part of the world is, it's gone for me. The suburb I was in looked like a war zone. Blood and broken things everywhere, houses carved up. No bodies, though, which I still think was odd. I scrounged up some food and things from some of the houses, and then, well, I went back home. I've been doing that for a while now. I'm not sure how long, really. Might have been years and years, or just a few months. It's hard to say. Sometimes the sun just sticks out in one spot for what feels like days. Other times these clouds roll in and you can't see 2 feet in front of you. And there's things around, too. I run at the first noise, but I think they're about man-sized and they seem to like metal. Other little things scrambled around in rubble sometimes, so I try and keep clear. One time, a thing that looked like a pill bug, the size of a cat, crawled out and looked at me and screamed, "Stop!" In perfect English. I hid inside for a few days. There are also these big, blimp things that float around sometimes. They have little bug legs on their undersides, and they look like maggots, but with eyes all over. They eat everything when they land, but most of the time they stay high up. One of these had just passed when I found the hurt guy. He was all ripped up and looked like one of those military army men you see on the television sometimes, but his combat thing, his suit, it was all ripped to hell. I dragged him back home, and then we talked. He said that He had begun hunting the blimp thing, but had gotten attacked by something. He wouldn't say by what, but he looked like he was on his last legs. I fed him some canned beans and some water, and he seemed to come around a little. Asked me who I was and if I was all right and all those formalities. He seemed kind of shocked when I said that he was the first person I'd seen since the rest of the world had, well, vanished. He told me no, it wasn't gone, just relocated, but wouldn't say what that meant. I helped heal him up and kept asking who he was, but he wouldn't say. Finally, he said, blast it, that his orders were probably no good anymore anyway, and he told me. He said that he worked for a foundation or something, that they were like a combination jail and research center. He said that he was one of the agents who went around trying to find strange, anomalous things and keep it from hurting people. I said he was doing a hell of a job so far, and, well, he laughed pretty hard. He said something had happened and that a bunch of these things had gotten loose at the same time and caused this foundation place to lose control. He said it became a, what was it? A GH-0 dead greenhouse scenario. I asked him what that meant, of course, because it sounds like gibberish to me, and, well, he looked at me for a while before going on. He said that's what they call a situation where everybody on Earth dies, but the Earth itself is still okay and can support life. I asked what did it matter if everybody's dead, and he smiled strangely. I asked him if anyone else on Earth was still alive, and he said yes, but carefully spread out and contained. After that, I just sort of sat and digested things for a bit, and the man started stretching and checking his cuts. He was starting to pull his boots on when I asked, what happens now? He said that they have to reboot things. Said that they have the technology to recreate almost anything, and that making people is actually pretty easy. Said that they would clean out and contain things, rebuild the broken cities, and repopulate them. It would take a very long time, but he said it would eventually get things back to the way they were before. Even said that they could recreate memories and stuff. I just sat, kind of stunned, and watched him as he kept going along, getting dressed like it was all no big deal. I told him he was mad and that there was no way people could just forget, and that all this could just be swept away. He stopped and looked at me and smiled and then said, why not? It's been done before. I don't know if that man was crazy or not, but I think he was sane. And as he was leaving, he said something about putting my house underwater. Please, don't let them brush me away. Don't let them hide us. Try and find more. I know there's got to be more people who tried to leave something behind. Don't let the world die in vain. Remember us. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that was a terrifying one indeed. That was document recovered from the Mariana Trench, everybody. Thank you very much to the writer and to the genius minds, those horror aficionados over at the SCP Foundation, which is the fictional foundation from which we heard this story. But really, how fictional is it? Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for listening to tonight's installment of Horror Radio, and we'll see you again very, very soon. Bye-bye now.